So yes, my name is Thorsten Arnold. I would like to thank all of you for being here. Some people know me through local food systems. I'm actually a trained earth system scientist who then did a PhD in adaptation, and that was agricultural watershed management and irrigation water. So my focus on the food system is born out of this idea of climate change and the planetary crisis. And this is actually something that I'm actually much more at home than in agriculture. Towards a new landscape narrative of hope is the title of a project that we submitted to Greenbelt, and we were funded with the purpose of establishing a network here for future funding. Normally, Greenbelt mostly funds the planting of trees and plants, but the big problem is we don't have land where people want to plant those things. So throwing more trees into a society where we don't have the land to plant it doesn't make sense. So we have to also think how we decide over it. And I pick up my sister. No. So we have to kind of think how together we can create that platform. The Greenbelt is, and by extension, the Niagara Escarpment is the dominant feature of southwestern Ontario. It's under threat, but it's also something very precious to hold on to. And sometimes in this disaster media, we forget about how great things we have. I'm first going to give you a little bit rundown on the story, and then I'll come to the project because that shows how it is linked. So these are two different streets, same day, same city, very different climate. We have made those climates. We have changed these climates, not with greenhouse gas emissions, but by changing land use. And that's 10 degrees difference. It's much more than the 1.5 degrees that global warming is creating. Of course, in a different scale, it's much smaller, but this street, and it's not the shade, it's the transpiration, it's the sweating of the plants that's creating the cooling. Toronto is 5 to 10 degrees warmer than the Greenbelt. That's also change in climate that has nothing to do with global warming. That's entirely land use and water cycle that creates these urban heat islands. I can talk about that much more, but I don't today. On rural areas, this is from a pilot training manual, and it talks about the climate on the land and how it enables glider planes to go. And what they say is, great, there's heat domes whenever there's bare soil, because that's good for the thermal, and you can see birds doing that. And over forests and marshes, you have cooling, where the moisture is drawn downwards, and it gets recirculated into our system. And this happens certainly at rural. We have rural heat domes. What we see here is a continental heat dome that covers basically entire North America. And this is my position to also acknowledge the First Nations of this continent, because this is the tipping point of the melting Arctic, which is an accelerating process. And we don't know if we can stop this process. And it's very unlikely that we can stop this process. And it leads to a greening of a place called Greenland. But what it is, it's a combination of natural variability, the La Nina, the desertification, which is the bare soil and land use, and global warming. It's not one of the three, it's all three together. Ontario is kind of on the edge. Thank goodness we don't have to worry about it. Well, if we go back into the 1930s, actually Ontario experienced massive desertification, dust bowls. We have deforested the land, and we're still replanting. We're still not back yet. So yes, it's important, especially because we're on the edge of this heat dome. Our land use here is actually really pivotal to determining our climate. The drivers of desertification in temperate climate zones are bare soil, destruction of soil health, drainage of landscapes, removal of vegetation cover, loss of biological diversity, and global warming causes desertification, but desertification causes global warming. It's a positive feedback cycle. And that's something why I think we should always think about both aspects. Anyone seen this around here?
Yeah.
Very fast. If you see the difference between 2005 and 2022, this happened in the last 17 years. This is desertification at a very high velocity, and it's destroying biodiversity, it's emitting carbon. Soil health is degrading rapidly all across southern Ontario. This is from Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada website. It's actually worse after 2007. And drainage everywhere and at the highest speed that we have seen. Right now, the area that's drained fastest is the stretch between Port Elgin and Peterborough. This is where we're pushing away the water. Plant vegetation or plant growth is about 50% of what it should be in this area. And that's because we have bare soil and we don't have diversity in our plant cover anymore. So all of those together kind of led us to think about what we did before in the 1930s. We came together as a society and said we need to do something. And I think something like this 100 years later has to happen again, where we make a conscientious effort of restoring our landscape. Our goal is to unify relevant initiatives behind the landscape narrative of hope and mainstream this narrative. Our hypothesis is that all of you already have this narrative implicitly, but so far it's fragmented. There's the pollinator people, the forest people, the shoreline people, and we're all competing for the same grants. And so the internal society sets us up as enemies who have to fight for funding, but we're doing all the same. And we have to communicate that conscientiously in order to move forward into a less competitive environment. We've promised two things. One is to build a community platform as a toolbox for the emerging narrative, and one is public engagement. This toolbox should create visibility for the initiatives that exist. It should ensure a native plant supply, because without those, all regeneration is problematic. Somehow we have to deal with labor and also help people with experimental learning. And I'm going to go through those in more details. So the first thing which we're going to do is just continue to gather organizations. We're working here with the Grey County Sustainability Map, collaboration of the Sustainability Project with Grey County. Thank you for helping there. And it basically just invites people to put their organizations and businesses on a map. Quick ones. So each of these dots is highlighted with some information. And if you go here, you can put your organization in. There's a little button, add your org. And if you do that, then up comes just a form, and that populates this map. We're gonna, in our new map, we'll just embed this. I don't wanna reinvent the wheel. And I'd rather build and strengthen the existing initiatives. We also have started to collect videos. If you go to YouTube and type Regenerate Breakthroughs, we already have like some 10 or 12 online, which some students have done with us. And some new, there's a new video from a local guy who's moved here. And we would like to tell those stories. And also, we are still working on a memorandum of understanding with Gregg County to create a story map, which is basically a collection of lots of regeneration initiatives that are on a map, and then they're attached with short paragraph that kind of summarizes it. And this just helps people to navigate what's happening and create visibility. So yeah, this is how it looks like. This is something which we would like to invite all of you to submit your initiatives. We'll send, like, we have your contact, we'll send a sign up for a form. And it's, in the end, it's a bit longer than this, what we want to do, and a few pictures, and that's all. And it links to your website because we don't want to replicate. Yep, continue. Native plant supply is a bigger issue because right now we have very low demand overall and very low supply. Markets work, but at a very insignificant level. If we would like to, and we have limited local production capacity, we have a few nurseries around, but they don't want to create huge greenhouses and start to like upscale by a factor 100. They're very knowledgeable people, though, and we need those nursery owners as educators. So how do we create, how do we move to a large demand and a large supply? It's kind of a chicken-egg conundrum. And what I want to do is I want to organize large supply by working with farmers. I want to orchestrate initial demand by working with public sector institutions who put in pollinator gardens or tiny forests. And then we have to populate this, or we have to shout out this narrative so that people who put in new gardens go to their landscaper and say, I would like this really shishi native pollinator wall with expensive, because we have to recognize it needs to be pretty also, and people want to show something about themselves with the garden. And they can do that just as well with native plants, and it's pretty, and so encourage that. Next slide. So what we want to do is, I don't go into this detail for respect of time, but build work with local farmers, volunteer seed collectors, landowners, trainers, and the native nurseries to basically build a collaborative supply chain that would be able to then first do lots of tiny forests around here and then also start supplying to landscapers. The second part is basically, on one hand, the labor, but on the other hand, also this experimental learning. Buddhist teacher says, we know about climate change and everything. We don't need to educate, but we have to get people from knowing to doing. That's the critical step. And living, or you can call it living a narrative of change, doing the narrative of change requires that we feel what we're doing. We can't just, it's not a rational thing, and but it's something that comes from the body. And so we need to, our proposal is to build a volunteering network, but not just for labor, but also for community connection and for fun. Pruning an orchard with your family and is fun. Harvesting apples, where you can throw apples because there's so many. It's fun. You climb on trees. There's so that you can organize that so positively. But if you there's a few problems. This only works if it's very regular, so urbanites can plan it into their days. It requires really fast navigation. There's a frost in 4 days. We need to harvest the orchard. So you have a 2-day window for actually planning, whereas most urbanites take like 2 weeks to wiggle around. So they basically have to already say, yeah, I'm going to do something, even though I don't know what I'm going to do. But I trust that these guys make it fun for me and my family so that we can relate to each other. And it needs to be age appropriate. So these are a bunch of spiritual leaders. They were all 70 and above. We could make a work view with them. We built this structure, and it was fun. And it took a half an hour, so it was great. And what this in the end means is a big calendar where different organizations can all post their work piece, so that not every organization has a separate emailing list, but there's a large thing that people can filter by area, by type of work, by the time that works for them. There's some online evaluation, there's some regular reminders, and the hosts need to kind of follow some protocol as well to avoid abusiveness and give some space for community building. So those are the biggest products that we want to create. And in addition, we will do public engagement work. Madeleine is going to run some community dialogue circles. I offer presentation and talks, like the introduction that I gave with much more time. Tiny Forest, we do media, like this winter I will write a few media articles with the team. If anybody else wants to partner on that, the better. We will do some workshops and promote regeneration services as an emerging economic sector. This cannot be all done on charity budgets. This needs to be that people who move here and they have a big budget for putting their gardens in, that they just pay for it like a normal, like it's an economy. Yeah, so this is what I wanted to say. I kind of ran through it. I just want to say, how can organizations participate? This is a summary slide. Business and organizations should make sure they're signed up with a Great County Sustainability Asset Map.
That can be found on the front page of our website, sustainabilityproject.ca.
Regeneration initiatives will hear from us, and they get a survey so they can put their initiative on the map. If you want to work with volunteers in the future, reach out to us. And so we create a strong hub rather than lots of multiple little hubs. If you want to learn, we're happy. We have a budget. We come to your place and give a presentation. If you want to engage, participate in the dialogue circles, please write with us. I think I would love to have an article in all the magazines, the free magazines laying out here. And yeah, let's build demand for native plants. So we are currently working with the Rotary Club in Byerton to build a tiny forest in the public school here at SPS, and also a swale, a bioswale that soaks water with the Grey Bruce, stewardship Grey Bruce. And so we're building these partnerships to create demand with totally separate projects. Like those projects exist without the general purpose. I help with like as long as I'm being paid, I can help with grant writing and fundraising within our capabilities. So if you are like, wow, step in, we also have Neighborhood North who have been doing this, so we're a good team.